Hello, hello, hello. This is the Vanilla JS podcast. I'm Chris Ferdinandi. Thanks for joining me. Today, I'm talking about HTML, why it's awesome, and my hope for the future of the web. Let's get started. So, a few weeks back, I wrote an article about how you can build interactive expand and collapse components with just HTML. And then I wrote a follow-up article on how you can extend that with a little bit of JS to make it more like a traditional component accordion group where when one opens, others collapse. Thinking about the future of the web, I want fewer new JavaScript APIs and more HTML features. HTML is my favorite part of the stack. It's simple, resilient, and powerful, and naturally progressively enhances itself. The developer community as a whole, and browser vendors as well, seem particularly focused on what are called low-level JavaScript APIs that you can use to build open-ended stuff. And that's cool, I get it. Web components, for example, are pretty neat. They allow you to kind of build your own named components that can be extended and kind of do whatever you want. And that's pretty neat, but it's not what I want. I want out-of-the-box, ready-to-use HTML components. I don't want to have to create my own custom stuff. That's actually the problem I don't want to have to think about. I want that solved for me. And I want it solved in a standards-based way so that it's predictable. I want components that are interactive, that provide baked-in solutions for common component issues. And I want them accessible by default too. I don't want to have to think about how to implement things like tabs, drop-down menus, modals. I don't want to have to write JS to make them work or think about what roles and ARIA attributes are needed to make sure that screen reader users know what's going on. And I don't want to have to grab third-party components and hope that they did those things correctly either. I just want that stuff baked into the browser. Now, I still want some control. I don't want only HTML. For example, I want to be able to style those elements with CSS. I don't want a situation like what we had with the select element, where for years you couldn't do any styling of them at all. I want to be able to hook into them with JavaScript to toggle behaviors too, like in the example I showed with details and summary elements in an article, which I'll link to down in the show notes. I also want to be able to use them out of the box and have them just work in a progressively enhanced, accessible way. For example, imagine being able to add a drop-down to your page by literally creating a drop-down element. Inside that element, creating a toggle element with the text that should trigger the drop-down and collapse behavior. And then underneath that, having the content that you want to show up in the dropdown. It could be open-ended content, maybe like a mega dropdown. It could be an unordered list of items that you can style. And then being able to change things like the icons that show up for maybe there's some sort of default icon, like an arrow or something. And then you can control the icons, but change the way they look by using the pseudo selectors like drop down before and drop down expanded attribute before for when it's already expanded if you want to like change it or something. Or imagine being able to hook into it to extend its behavior with JavaScript. Like document add event listener expand as like an event, and then with the event target, you can find the expanded dropdown and do something with it. Mostly HTML, some CSS, and a little JavaScript. That's the future of the web that I want. I'm not sure if we'll get there anytime soon, but that's the kind of development that I'm interested in doing. And that's where I wish we as an industry were putting more of our focus. So that's it for today. If you want to finally master JavaScript, head over to vanillajsguides.com and check out my pocket guides and video courses. As a listener of the show, you can take 30% off with the code podcast at checkout. See you next time. Cheers.